So control has the ability to specify specific parts and specific labors to be scheduled out onto calendars so you can track and create activities to see what kind of labors and what kind of equipment time you have that's going through your system. So what you would need to do to start that off with is you go to Setup, Pricing Setup, All Pricing Setup, go to Part Setup, and then you pick the type of parts that you want to schedule. So we'll start off by turning on a couple of equipment parts, and then we'll turn on a couple of labors. So I just want to go in under Equipment, and I want to be able to schedule out one of my printers and one of my laminators, so that way I can keep track of what we got going through the system. So I'm just going to expand Digital Large Format Printers. I'm going to pick my HP 5500, and then I can click on Edit here, and there should be a checkbox at the top that says Show on Production Schedule. So as soon as I check that box, I get a new tab that says Scheduling. If I click on the Scheduling tab for equipment, I have create one calendar for this part or allow multiple calendars. So let's say I have an HP 5500, but I have two of those machines. So rather than having two different parts in the system, I can create multiple calendars for that one part, so that way I can track my different jobs that go through for each printer that I actually own. And I can also go through and rename those particular printers. So like if I have a specific name, or I want to kind of note HP 5500 main room, HP 5500 print room, I could name the calendar for that particular part. In this case here, I'm just going to say create one calendar. I'm going to call this HP 5500, and I'm going to save it. So now I'm able to schedule jobs out on this particular printer. And if I want to do the same thing for the laminator, I just go and pull up my laminator parts, my Royal Sovereign, edit that part, and do the same thing. Show on Production Schedule, Scheduling, multiple part names if I had more than one part, or if I had more than one machine, I could do it there, or I just do my part here. All right, so that's how you would turn on scheduling for your different equipment parts. Turning on scheduling for the labors is similar, but it differs in one major way. If I go and click on labor, I'll find standard labor, and then I find my print labor. I go ahead and edit my labor, show on production schedule, and then click on the scheduling tab. The main thing that differs then now is instead of having to specify the different machines that I actually carry, I just tell it which of my existing employees in the system are able to be scheduled out for this particular type of labor. So in this case here, for my print labor, I want to be able to have access to it with Billy Bob and Billy Jean, and then Lori, and I'm going to go ahead and add myself to this as well. And I go ahead and save that now. And I can do the same thing for another type of labor. So I'm going to go and close my standard labor, expand hand cutting labor, edit my labor, and show on production schedule, scheduling tab. And let's say we have an entire different set of people that actually do my hand cutting. So I just go through and check the people that I want to be able to allow to hand cut. Basically, that's the only bit of groundwork that needs to be done to allow you to be able to schedule out the different labors and the different equipment. So now that we turn those on, we can go through and do a couple of examples to see how that scheduling works and how how we can run different reports to access that information. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do a new job in the system. Right. So once I have my job entered, I want to make sure that I got some times on here. So I've got my print labor is about a tenth of an hour. I got my hand cut labor at about 15 minutes. And then I've got my Royal Sovereign at about another 2/10 of an hour. And then same thing for my HP printer. So what I can do, now that I've got some times on there, I just click on OK. So I have my job on there. What I can do now is click on the Scheduling tab, and all the parts that we turned on to allow us to schedule them are showing up here. So I've got my print labor, my Royal Sovereign, my HP 5500, and my hand cut labor. It tells me which line item it's coming from, the product that it belongs to, description of the job or description of the part that this actually is, and then it's going to ask me what the instance is. What the instance is basically telling me which calendar it is that I want to schedule this onto. So for the equipment, we only created one calendar. It only has HP. It only has the one calendar. If I had created more than one instance, those multiple instances, I'd be able to tell it, HP 5500 design room, HP 5500 print room. It would have my different calendars in there. And it's the same thing for my labors. It has instance. The list of employees that I allowed to be able to schedule out for this labor now exists on my instance list. So this is the list of employees that can do print labor. And then this is the list that can do my hand cut labor. So it's a completely different list because that's who we assigned to be able to do that particular type of labor. Once I pick my instances of who to schedule it for, I'll see it has my estimated time for each of the parts over here. So I can see my different times, and I'll see a rough outline of a calendar for when I can start to schedule these parts out. If I come over to the right here, I'll see some different arrows as well. So if I click the arrows, I can kind of go through and move my time forward. In this case here, now if I click onto here, it puts a different box for the different times. So I can go through and tell it which ones I want to schedule. So in this case here, I want to schedule out my print labor to start at 2 o'clock. So I click on that box, and it brings up the work assignment screen for scheduling out this part, and it fills all the information in for you. So it tells me that it's going to show up on my calendar. It's for new order, so it's going to fill in with the order once I save the order. It's going to have my part here, my print labor, my line item, instance. If there was more than one instance to pick from, it would show that there. If I want to actually remind myself, if I'm logged into the system, I want to remind myself that I got this job coming up, I can even add a reminder that tells me 5 minutes before I'm supposed to work on this, I want to add a reminder to this as well. So I click on OK, and then it adds that to the schedule, showing me that, hey, on this calendar, I have that scheduled. So I can go through now and schedule out all the different ones. So it's showing me that right now it's got the current, which will replace with the job number once I actually save the job. So I can go save as order, and pick a company first. So now it's showing me that I have those different jobs scheduled. So what I can do now is if I go and I want to clone this job to make a new job, so I've got new order here. If I go to the Schedule tab again, when I go to start scheduling out these times, it will show me that, hey, I have something already scheduled on a different job for this time frame. So one of the things it did is it dropped my instance, so I need to add my instance back. As soon as I do, it shows me that, hey, that particular person has something scheduled for that time frame. If I want to pick a different time, I can pick a different instance, and no longer is that particular person showing up on there. So I see that at that time, that person is free, whereas at this time, I am currently occupied with another job. So I can now I can go through and schedule out my new jobs here. So I'm just going to go and say at this time here, schedule this out. And I'll save that. And now it's showing me the different times that I have scheduled. So as you schedule out jobs, when you go to schedule out a new job, it will track and tell you that you have something already on the calendar for that particular job, so you know that you can't schedule something else at that time. So to go with that now, you can pull up Activity Manager, and it will show you the different jobs that you have scheduled out. So I've got on my system administrator calendars, I scheduled that person to work with the hand-cut labor. It's now showing me that I have those two jobs, and I can double click on it to bring up that particular job to see all the information about it. I can clock onto it, I can complete it, I can do everything it is that I would need to do to make sure that this work assignment gets finished. If you're kind of a production manager and you want to take a look and keep track of all of the specific employees that do a specific type of labor, what I can do is I can go to Activity Manager, pull the drop down next to it, add remove views. I can do a new view, and I can call this, so I can add in all the different calendars it is that I want to track under here. So I want to add System Administrator. I want to add me. I want to add a equipment. So I want to add my calendar for my Royal Sovereign. And I want to add the HP. So once I have that, I go ahead and click on Save. What it does is that creates a new calendar view. What I can do with that view now is if I go to Activity Manager, I'll see my labor calendar there. I click on that, and it brings up a view that shows me all the selected calendars, so I can take a look and see at a glance with one button click every single calendar it is that tracks a specific labor and lets me see what's been scheduled out on that particular job. So I can see that I have my system administrators working on these here. Kyle, me, I'm working on these right here. My Royal Sovereign is needed for these two jobs at this time, and then my HP 5500 has those jobs there. So I can create multiple views if I wanted to track maybe a install calendar, a cutting calendar, a machine calendar. I can create as many views as it is that I need that would show me the specific calendars that have the information that I want to see. And then lastly, so that's a good way to look at what you have scheduled out in terms of on a particular calendar. Maybe I want to see everything that's scheduled out on my different work assignments for the entire week. So I can go up to Reports, Activities, Scheduled Activities. I can do it by estimate, by employee, by customer, or by order to break out what each of these reports will show. I can do, in this case, we'll do scheduled activities by employee. Click on that. I set the date range that I want to see. So I want to see everything that's scheduled for a particular time range. In this case here, I want to see all of my scheduled activities. I'll click on Preview, and that will bring me up a report that shows me store owner has these different scheduled activities. So there's already some activities that existed on there. So we want to go look for Kyle. Apparently I have lots of stuff scheduled. But basically what this report does is it shows you everything that has a work assignment that you've scheduled to do in the system. It will have all those activities created for you, and that way you can keep track and see what you have coming up in the future months. And it also shows you any type of notes. It shows you the specific estimate, specific order that each activity is tied to. It shows you all the information that you would need to know about that particular work assignment. And thank you everyone for coming, and we will start the calls start the regular Q&A back up next week. And thank you for coming.